All right, so once your painting is totally dry, you're ready to jump into our next step, and that is gonna be the petals. And so this is a really fun process because it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's a lot of different shapes. Mostly what you're looking for is kind of these nice long oval shapes that are elongated and kind of moving in different directions. These ones down here point different directions. You've got these ones that kind of come up and they look like they're kind of bent a little bit. And then these ones start to point upward towards the top. So that's really, you just want to focus on the directionality of these. So what we're going to use is we're going to use the magenta, the red, our red that we have. It's technically a magenta because it's a little more on that pink side, but who cares? It's red. So we're going to use that red with just a tiny, tiny bit of white into it. We don't want a lot because we don't really want it to be a pink. We just want it to be a nice kind of bold red on there. You can also, if you like kind of the more orangey sagebrush that we tend, or sagebrush, oh my gosh, Indian paintbrush that we tend to get, you can grab just a little bit of yellow as well. We'll be adding it in on top, so don't feel like this is our last. This is just one layer to many. And the petals have about 5 layers of color on them total. And so this is just our base. So once again, medium brush, and we're gonna be mixing red and just a tiny bit of white, and maybe if you want a little bit of yellow in there, but mostly red and just a tiny bit of white. All right, so what we're gonna do, like I said, we're gonna focus in on just making those petal shapes more of a long, elongated oval. So I'm gonna start up nice and high for this one. It does come up a few inches above the painting and give us that nice oval shape. You want to start a little more broad at the stem, and then you can kind of come more to a taper at the end. This one kind of comes right off the page for us, right off our canvas. And then our next one's going to come out from right next to it, so they're buddies, and it's just going to come right over here. Mine's got a little bit of an extra curve to it. No worries, everything in nature is different, so no two sagebrush look alike. Neither will yours and mine, neither will mine from this original. And then you just continue to kind of shape those around, give them a nice body. And we're gonna work all the way up the stem. You might have some areas where your leaves underneath are showing through. Just let that dry for a second as you go through the rest of them, and then come back and you can give everything a second coat. We're gonna be working what's called a wet on wet technique throughout the rest of this. And so it's gonna be nice and wet, and we're gonna have those layers. So don't worry about having thick paint or worrying about it drying. We want it to be nice and wet throughout this. Once again, if you have to mix some more paint, no worries. You can add a little water if you want this to be a little easier to move around. And you're just gonna continue. This one's gonna be kind of nice and big over on this side, coming off this nice edge. And then I'm just gonna leave that one kind of split at its end. That nice kind of taper, I enjoy that quite a lot. That shape's kind of interesting. And then just continuing up, kind of giving myself some extra ones. Not every single one of these is gonna be perfectly shaped, or like this one's just like a little tiny drip that you're seeing from the back side. This one, I'm gonna come up and then push my paintbrush right down, because that's gonna give you that kind of broken or wilted or bent leaf. So play with those shapes. Once again, if you have another paper that you can kind of experiment with and play with, that is a great thing to have on hand. And give yourself another few little spaces here. And just continue to work on those petals and find the balance that you like. One of the things that I would suggest is just make sure you're giving yourself balance throughout, kind of work through, and then you might end up coming back and saying, oh, I want one more over here, or I want it to look a little different. You can always just add some shape and color. If you're not quite wanting a full petal, but maybe it just looks like there's a gap, you can always just come in towards the bottom and just add a little extra. These are a nice full bloom anyway, but they do have some kind of awkward little spaces. So don't worry about it and just have fun making the petals. You want to work your way up to the top, and like I said, kind of cluster up here and start to point vertically. Get a little more paint for myself here. We're gonna move into the next one. This one here is kind of an interesting shape. It's a little more bulbous towards the top, and then it comes down to a taper a little more at the stem. Just gonna give yourself that shape. Maybe it's a little higher on this edge. And then another one that's kind of bent or in the background here. Push that back. Well, there's a little one that comes off of the edge of this one, so I'm just gonna put it next to it. They're gonna, especially with this layer, they are going to meld together and look really clustered. Don't worry about it. as we add the other layers in, you'll get that separation coming through, no problem. And this one's gonna come down and it's gonna kind of interrupt that one we had right, that was our offshoot, kind of hiding. And it's gonna blend in with those others as well, so we'll have to restructure that towards the end, but once again, totally normal and totally fixable, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna build these and then add those other layers back in. So continue building those long oval shapes for our floral petals, this nice big bloom that we've got going. And then, as I said before as well, if you're getting some of those leaves showing through, just go back over them a second time. You can wait until you finish the rest, or if you want to, if it's really bothering you, go ahead and do it. It's all right. And then this one, I'm gonna come off a little bit higher. I'm gonna fill that space back in. And then this one's gonna be a little bit odd shaped right there. And then these next ones, this is where it's really gonna cluster together a little bit more. So push that one in there. This one's gonna come up tall right here. Another one right off of it. We're gonna be covering up some of our previous work, and that's no worries. And then one more that's just kind of tucked right in there at the top with that. All right, so once again, go ahead and get your petals done. If you need to, go ahead and cover anything up a second time to get that kind of solid shape in there. Not a huge deal, and if there's some showing through, it'll end up just kind of reading as shadow anyway, so don't worry too much about it if you're having a hard time with it. We'll come back in a minute for our next step, and we'll keep going. Thanks, guys.